Storytime. This is a story about how our family survived 27 months and 1 week of unemployment. We had no discernible income. And my husband, he had a job that in the oil and gas industry. And if you know anything about that industry, it's feast or famine. You either make a lot of money or no money. And he got laid off at one point with thousands of others. It's in episode 2 of the God's Goodness podcast for the full story about that. I'm Shelly with the God's Goodness podcast, by the way. Anyway, so what had happened was he got laid off. I had been a stay-at-home mom because he was in the oil and gas industry, and it was so much money that you could pay off debt and save money very easily if you knew how to steward your money. Well, I didn't know as much as I know now, but somehow we got almost $12,000 paid off, and we only had $1,060 left to go. And then we didn't have money to put towards that anymore. At first, things were easy because we had money saved, there was unemployment, all the usual stuff. But then you have to start spending less. So we went through all our subscriptions, stop the cable, things like that. Switch from Verizon to Cricket, which I've had no problems, thank goodness, since we got it. But that's besides the point. So we cut corners as much as we could. But one thing we did do the whole entire time was tithe 10%. So whatever money came in, we gave 10% of that to the church because it was funding a bigger mission than anything we were doing at the time. And people thought we were crazy because if we got $20, we would tithe $2. And they're like, you need that money. I'm like, well, if we don't give that money, then anyway, you can't outgive God. That is the point of this whole story. But anyway, we went through, so 27 months is 2 years and 3 months of no discernible income. That's crazy. We had a house. We didn't lose the house. We didn't lose any utilities. So it was only a God thing. And God kept giving us money in different ways. I wish I would have written it down because it was so neat. The thing is, my husband was applying for as many jobs as he could, and nobody was hiring him. And God was telling him, do nothing. But he had to apply for jobs or child support people would throw him in jail. So he had to have a list every so often and turn it in so he wouldn't get thrown in jail. How are you supposed to pay child support if you're in jail? But it's Pennsylvania laws that we're dealing with here. Anyway, so he's applying for all these jobs and God is shutting all the doors. Nothing is happening. And we went through an amazing season where we got really close to God during that time. I learned how to accept gifts from other people. So that's why when at the end of my podcast episodes, I say, hey, if you'd like to give, we have a fundraising campaign. So I don't need to learn that lesson again. Eventually, he got a job as a supervisor at Dunkin' Donuts, but that wasn't going to pay all the bills. So I decided to start looking for work. And within a month, I had found work. So it was just meant to be when it was meant to be. So if you're in a similar situation and you're unemployed, like my husband is now, so that's a really interesting story. God laid it on my heart to share the story Monday, and then Tuesday he was fired. So I was planning on encouraging somebody with this story Monday, and then here we are today. I'm only sharing it now. So it's been on my heart for a while, and I hope it benefits somebody, and maybe you can share it with somebody. We have encouraging stories on the God's Goodness podcast. We share modern day miracles and God's goodness in the God's Goodness podcast. So tune in. Every Friday there's a new episode. So I hope you can take a listen, rate it, and share it with a friend. And don't forget, enjoy.